कोई रिस्पॉन्स नहीं?
समझ
में आ रहा है, बहुत बढ़िया बात है। तीन स्प्रिंग है, ब्लॉक्स 2 kgs है। सिमिलर और एक सिस्टम है, बीच में स्प्रिंग की जगह स्ट्रिंग है। सबको नाम दे देते हैं, ABCDEF। ठीक है, you have to find out the acceleration of the blocks just when A is cut. A is cut, next when B is cut, next when C is cut, next when E is cut, and when D is cut. Individually, अलग अलग 4 प्रॉब्लम्स में पूछो। और ये डी वाला केस में टेंशन इन द स्ट्रिंग क्या होगा, ये भी थोड़ा बताने की चेष्टा करें। ई वाला केस में टेंशन क्या होगा? When E is cut, how much is the tension in the string?
0।
Obviously 0, स्ट्रिंग ही कट कर रहे हैं ना यार, तो स्ट्रिंग कट करते हैं तो टेंशन 0 ही तो होता है। बोलो आंसर्स। आंसर नहीं आ रहे हैं, बच्चों की वाट लगती हुई। G/2। The 3 blocks of it. Let's solve. बहुत टाइम दे दिया इसको। इसमें कुछ एक पॉइंट्स है जो याद रखना है। When you suddenly change the mass or when you suddenly change a force, will the spring force change? पहले इसका एक easier version करते हैं। Let us, because you guys are struggling a bit, let us solve a easier version of this same problem. Okay. This is capital M, this is small m. How much is the spring force and how much is the tension force initially, of course? M plus M into G. Now if I remove this, if I throw off the small m mass, how much would the at time 0, then how much would be the tension at time 0 plus and how much will be the spring force at time 0 plus?
Tension will be capital M and the spring force will remain same.
Will remain same. Okay. So at time 0 minus, the tension is M plus M into G, which is also equal to FSP. And at time 0 plus, I can say that when you, after you throw out the particle small m, the tension becomes capital Mg and the FSP remains the same. So the spring force does not change immediately. ये पहला point है. Okay. Now if I cut the two things, then what will happen? Instead of throwing the particle, if I cut the two things, then what will happen? What will be the tension? What will be the spring force?
Tension 0, spring force constant.
Nahi, that is the mistake. Spring force will be 0. So please remember, tension will change immediately. Spring force will not change immediately. When other forces are changed, okay, when there is a change in configuration of the system, the spring force will not change immediately. When will the spring force immediately change? When the spring is cut. Why? Because then there is a free end which is generated in a way. Okay, so you can say that infinite acceleration, spring massless है तो infinite acceleration होके वो force तुरंत zero हो जाता है. So what are the 2 points that you need to remember in such cases? FSP does not change immediately. And there is a, please mute yourselves if there is noise in the background, please mute yourselves. FSP does not change immediately when there is a change in the configuration of the system. Okay. But if a free end is generated in a spring, free end generate कब होगा? जब spring को cut करेंगे तभी तो free end generate होगा. But if a free end is generated in the spring, what does that mean? A spring is cut. Then what will happen? Then FSP becomes 0 immediately. We get clear with these things so far. कोई response नहीं?
हाँ सर समझ गए.
हाँ सर समझ.
Okay.
Yes.
Going back to the question. The spring forces are 20. Take a different color. The spring forces are 20, 40 and 60. Tension भी वही, यहाँ पर भी वही है 20, 40, 60, irrespective of whether string or spring. These are the forces. Are we clear with this? Right. Now I cut the lower spring. What will happen when I cut the lower spring? The spring force here will become 0. So the only force on this body will be what? Mg. And so this will start accelerating down with G, as a few of you had guessed. और अब क्या होगा? ऊपर वाला blocks में क्या होगा बोलो? What will be the acceleration of the block 2 and block 1? What are the forces? क्या forces है?
60 and 40.
E by
Block 2 पे क्या acceleration होगा? मैं पूछ रहा हूँ.
40 up and 20 downwards.
40 up and 20 down. Very good. So what will be the acceleration of the block 2? समझ में आ रहा है? ये 40 का 40 रहेगा. This spring becomes 0 immediately, but the other spring will not become 0 immediately. It will remain 40. The topmost spring will also not become 0. It will remain 60. I'm sorry, मैं flip कर दिया values. ये 20 होगा, ये 60 होगा. This spring force is equal to the weight. This spring force is equal to the weight of this body plus the 20 Newton spring force. This spring force is equal to the weight of the three things together. So this will be 60. Okay. So ये initial spring force है 20, 40, 60. ये initial spring force है. Now when you cut this spring force becomes 0, but the other two spring forces remain unchanged. And as a consequence, what will be the acceleration of the lowest block will be G downwards. It is in a free fall. The block 2 will have what acceleration? 40 up and 20 down. So net 20 force by the mass 2. So G upwards. What about the upper topmost block?
G upward.
For
60 minus 40 minus 60. क्या होगा?
No change.
No change. Exactly. इसके configuration में कोई change नहीं आया. So the acceleration of this body will remain 0. The acceleration of this body will remain 0. देखो समझ में आ रहा है? ऊपर 60 जो लग रहा था वही लगेगा. Immediately change नहीं होगा. Okay. We are only interested in what happens immediately when the spring is cut. Okay. At time 0 plus का बात कर रहे हैं, right? What happens sometime later is not our concern. So the acceleration of the block 1 will be how much? The acceleration of the block 1 will remain 0. See if you're clear with this.
Sir, but when block 2 goes upward, the string D will compress.
What happens when one thing moves is not our concern. वही तो मैं बोल रहा हूँ अभी मैं और क्या बोला जस्ट जब कट किए उस समय का बात चल रहा है अब मूव करना स्टार्ट होगा तब फिर क्या होगा उससे अपन को कोई मतलब नहीं we are only interested in that moment when the string is cut. See if you are clear with this. Hello.
Yes.
सेकेंड अभी स्प्रिंग बी को कट करें या फिर सेकेंड डायग्राम पे चल जाओ सेकेंड डायग्राम पे बताओ क्या होगा सेकेंड डायग्राम सेकेंड केस भी सॉल्व सेकेंड डायग्राम में अभी लोएस्ट स्प्रिंग को कट करो फिर उसके बाद में बी और ई का करेंगे ए और डी अभी ए कर ली अभी डी को कट करो इसका डी एंड सॉल्व When you cut the spring D, what will happen? Please tell me first.
Acceleration of block 2 is 0.
Block 3 का acceleration क्या हो जाएगा?
G downwards.
G downwards. What about the acceleration of the blocks 1 and 2?
G upwards.
नहीं दोस्त अभी क्या
ब्लॉक 2 का 0 होगा ब्लॉक 2 का 0 होगा
नहीं यार
2G
नहीं यार क्या पढ़े थे टेंशन का फोर्स तुरंत चेंज हो सकता है based on the change in the
G by 2 upwards.
let me check
टेंशन पे mg के बराबर हो जाएगा
20 upwards good G by 2 upwards good कैसे सॉल्व करेंगे now these two guys will start moving together as a system ठीक है ना string force will adjust itself in such a way that their two bodies move together with the same acceleration अलग हो गए तो string elongate compress हो जाता है तो वो चीज allowed नहीं होगा right so they will have the same acceleration in the upward direction how much will be that acceleration 60 upward force है और इन दोनों का weight मिला के कितना है 40 तो 60 minus 40 by the mass is how much mass कितना है सिस्टम का 4 so 5 meter per second how much will be the tension in the string in this case tension adjust हो रहा है अपन अभी डिस्कस 20 हो जाएगा तो फिर तो ब्लॉक रेस्ट पे आ जाएगा तो 20 हो गया तब तो 30
T minus 20 equals to mass into
T minus 20 is equals to mass into acceleration T minus 20 is equals to 2 into 5 yes so 30
T तो है
हाँ 30 है ऑफ कोर्स मैं इक्वेशन पूछ रहा था एक्चुअली ठीक है तो टेंशन इज 30 आर वी क्लियर विद दिस so we have solved it for A and D B and D बाद में कर लेना अभी नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन पे जाते हैं आर वी ओके विद दिस या फिर अभी सॉल्व करके दिखाओगे
तो पहला डायग्राम है एक्सेलरेशन ऑफ ब्लॉक 1 0 का सो एक बार रिपीट करेंगे प्लीज
एक्सेलरेशन ऑफ द ब्लॉक 1 इस ये स्प्रिंग फोर्स चेंज नहीं किया स्प्रिंग फोर्स 40 है ब्लॉक का वेट 20 है और स्प्रिंग फोर्स ऊपर में 60 है तो 60 अपवर्ड्स और 60 डाउनवर्ड्स तो नेट फोर्स 0 एक्सेलरेशन 0
If you want to solve more JEE Advanced problem, then subscribe to our channel.